What you are about to hear is a true story. I do hope you are sitting comfortably. This one time my rock and roll band were booked to play a show at a private party full of filthy hippies. This spiritual shindig was situated at an old manor house in the charming English countryside. We loaded up on excessive amounts of ale and rum, then loaded our excessively inebriated little asses into the van. Upon arrival, the unmistakable odor of marijuana and DMT smoke stung our eager and subservient nostrils. We were greeted promptly by a pleasant Caucasian fellow, his head adorned with a crown of well-seasoned dreadlocks and some random beads and shit. The man reeked of authority, among other things, and immediately commanded our everlasting respect. After a brief introduction, this stinky fucking Sasquatch guided us to the stage and showed us where to set up our equipment. Several beers and a bottle of rum later, we began to play. The next 60 minutes were a blur. Nothing more than a boldly redacted statement etched into the Freedom of Information request that is our collective memory. Following what we can only assume was a legendary performance, akin to Hendrix at Woodstock, Queen at Wembley Stadium, or perhaps even Peter Andre at Butlins, this band of merry men sought asylum in the warm embrace of a roaring fire. Then a crackhead asked me and the guitarist to spit roast her. We considered this proposition with the care and respect it deserved. However, upon reflection, we cordially declined her offer. Before I could wipe the droplets of pre-cum from my pulsating flesh helmet, I noticed our drummer collapse from a bench into a crumpled heap on the cold stone floor. After an hour or so of him being unresponsive, a good Samaritan called an ambulance for our fallen comrade. He was swiftly swept away in a chariot of blue light to receive the medical attention he deserved, but probably didn't need as he was just being a lightweight fanny. It was around this time when a strange, yet welcoming forest goblin approached me, his hand clutching a dessert spoon brimming with magical mushrooms. My mouth agape, I allowed the goblin man to insert his psychedelic silverware deep inside me. After some light dancing with the patrons of the event, and several failed attempts at seducing the females amongst them, I began to feel the effects take hold of me. Before long I was sat staring deep into the fire pit, perhaps even beyond the fire itself, and into the very fabric of existence. During this time, time ceased to be. Eventually I was whisked away by two of my remaining bandmates and thrust into the back of an unfamiliar pickup truck, heading for uncharted lands and destinations unknown. The next thing I can remember doing is lying in a small girl's bed, surrounded by Disney princess shit, wondering to myself exactly how this had come to be, while still tripping off my fucking Swede. Thankfully the usual occupant of this bedroom was nowhere to be found, otherwise I would have likely also been swept away in a chariot of blue light. After an hour or so of deep contemplation and existential dread, my associates appeared and removed me from this sanctuary of innocence in which I surely did not belong. We then set off on foot, searching valiantly for a way home. Guided only by our complete lack of navigational skills, we marched onward. After getting lost in the woods for some time, I reached into my pocket and to my surprise, pulled out a makeup purse. Inside the makeup purse was a motherfucking crack pipe, complete with sweet crack residue. One can only assume this belonged to the crack whore from earlier, who I can only hope fulfilled her desires for double penetration from another pair of generous benefactors. Myself and our lead guitarist proceeded to scrape out the crack residue and smoke it. At 8 a.m. in the middle of a public road. The thrill was electric. We arrived at the bottom of this country lane just as our faithful roadie happened to be driving past. This can only be described as a benevolent act of God, perhaps even a small miracle. 5 minutes later his dog did a diarrhea all over his leg in the van and it made me puke. Shortly after this fecal fiasco, I returned to the warm embrace of my home and ordered some Dominoes. Finally this journey had reached its conclusion. You may be asking yourself what the moral of the story is. Well my dear child, isn't it obvious? Drugs are cool as fuck mate. The end.
Dig on.